Hello, everyone who is watching Stateside Squad on our YouTube replay. This is me, Sophie Nicolau, and that's her, Amelia Lopez. And we're going to talk a little El Tráfico. Here we go. So, something for listeners to know, not only is Amelia a guru at MLS and Mexican football, but she's also an Arsenal fan.
Yeah.
Which is a coincidence because we learned this when we were covering LA Galaxy together. And Amelia, we were just before we came on air, we were talking about how torturous it is to be an Arsenal fan. Because, you know, we beat Chelsea and, you know, just in 30 seconds, tell everyone how torturous it is to be an Arsenal fan, even stateside.
There's this phrase in Spanish it says "ya pa qué." It's like for what? Like for what? And I feel like that perfectly encapsulates what Arsenal is doing to us right now. It's like for what? What are we getting excited for? For what? Like obviously we don't want to end in shambles or anything, but you see these victories against like West Brom and then obviously against Chelsea. And you just get reminded, this is why I stay. This is why I'm here.
I know. And the game today also reminded me, by the way, that Arteta's made so many bad decisions this season, choosing the team and, you know, tactically. But we're not talking about that today. We're going to save that for another day because we are going to do a Q&A with our good friend Rebecca Lowe, which we'll have you on as well before the season ends. So I digress. We're here to talk about El Tráfico. I was there this weekend. It was a beautiful day, Amelia. The sun was shining, true California style. Palm trees were glistening and the crowds are back, which I have to say makes such a massive difference. We've covered the games without crowds. And at first I was kind of a little bit intimidated. I've got to be honest, you know, wow, there's so many people here. But once it gets going and rolling, my goodness, wow, it has just been brilliant having the fans back. And I have to say, I'm going to give credit to LAFC here for a little bit because what the 3252 crew have done, they've raised the game for fans at games. And now we're seeing LA Galaxy up their game. We're seeing the new boys Austin FC pile in. We're seeing a lot of fans across MLS dovetail what they've done. Do you agree with that?
I think so. I think it was a perfect situation for everyone involved within that community. And like you're saying, it's not to negate it at all. When you go to a game at Bank California Stadium and you see the 3252, it's something like incredibly special. But I think, not to dismiss it or anything, I think every soccer culture, I mean, Austin's still developing theirs because they're so young, right? But I think that there was something always very special about LA Galaxy. And I think the fans in particular are a little bit neat. Like, I don't want to say picky because that's negative, but they do feel that passion. They just don't happen to be in the same section, right? That's a huge discussion point that's been made. But you do see that intensity building up. And the rivalry itself is always a fun time, regardless of who's playing or what's going on. So I can imagine in this situation, right? This is the first El Tráfico where fans were allowed back. It happened to be at Dignity Health Sports Park, but you still, it was a good time. I mean, I'm not there yet. Unfortunately, I will be back hopefully soon, but it was just as amazing to be able to watch and see fans and celebrations in the stands as, they got their goals this past weekend.
Definitely. And I think the beauty of it is there's just such a kind of cosmopolitan vibe to it all. There's that South American feel. You feel like at times you might be at a Boca Juniors game or a River Plate game, or also a game in Mexico as well. Or, the way Dortmund fans get into it. It's just a really eclectic group of fans that have really embraced this rivalry. And I think Zlatan had a lot to do with kickstarting the true rivalry, i.e. they hated him, didn't they? They hated Zlatan and they hated him for all the right reasons because he was such a disruptor to them, especially in the early days, for sure. Let's get to the game. So I wanted to talk to you about this guy. Wow. What has happened to this guy this season? I would say there are a lot of Hispanic fans who love him when he plays for his country. And obviously this changes a lot when he plays for LA Galaxy versus LAFC. But Amelia, you've seen his ups and downs. He's definitely gone through a very difficult personal time. He's talked about that a lot. I feel like there's going to come a time where maybe he's going to have to maybe stop talking about that or stop being asked about that, because he only talks about it when he's asked. But my goodness, this season, he is a completely different player. What's happened to Chicharito?
I think it was just a good moment for him, or I don't want to say good, but I think it was just a moment where he definitely took in that self-reflection. Like he said, I need to be better. And it didn't even necessarily feel like it was for anyone else besides himself. The last time that we talked, it did feel like we just wanted him all to do better. Like it was such a disastrous season last season. To even those that don't really particularly like him, right? It was like, hey, are you okay? Is everything all right with him? It just felt like this is not the player, regardless of whether he's living up to a goal scoring potential, like even just like mannerisms, everything, right? It didn't seem like he was being himself. And particularly for those of us within, the Mexican soccer world, it was like, yeah, this isn't who he is. And you've seen him this season get those ugly goals, get those, those poacher goals that he's so famous for. And you felt like, okay, he's going back into his rhythm. And I think he felt that himself, so much so that I guess almost like perfectly placed enough. You get this game that might be a little bit too early, but also at the right time, that for him to score that first goal 10 minutes in. I mean, regardless of where you are, rivalry games are a huge deal, no matter what league you play in. Even if you played in, a men's Sunday league and this is the team that you always face and it's high intensity, you're going to feel that emotion. So for him to get that goal and to score it in front of fans, like we're just talking about, at Dignity Health Sports Park, you felt it. You really felt like he was in a good way and he was in a better place. And to be that person, to not just score that first goal, but to do it against LAFC, I think it continues to validate him for what he can do for the rest of the season. Yeah,
I would agree with that. And also I think that the fact that LA Galaxy are off to a good start this season, and he's a huge part of that. They're doing it, I would say, not because of him, but they're doing it collectively as a group. But the fact that he's the driving force and is kind of the shining star, which is what LA Galaxy wanted, it's what fans wanted, it's also what MLS wanted. When you're a designated player and you come with such a high price tag, but you also come into a community that loves you and you're beloved. So the fact that he's doing it and such an integral part of it, for his confidence, it's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, and it, like you mentioned, right, Zlatan might have made the rivalry, right, just because in the manner that he came in, it was like a day after he had flown in, he comes in, completely takes over it, right? And that's the personality that Zlatan had. He would take over games and just make it all his own. With Chicharito, it's a very different kind of leader. I think Jonah even joked about it, right? The players, when Zlatan was leader, felt very intimidated, and he said something in Spanish that I'm not going to repeat. But
it was hilarious, by the way. Tell everyone kind of what he said. I mean, it was
basically he told the press that players would
shit their pants.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we said it.
Say it on the podcast.
But Spanish is a very beautiful language, but it sounded much more hilarious. Eloquent Spanish. But it's true, right? With Chicharito, you get a very different kind of person. You get someone that is very emotional, someone that is very motivated in a very different way. And so when you see him happy or you see him in that good place, it makes the rest of the players want to play better. So I think he's just been in a fantastic form. And like you said, I know you've done it on past pods, right? You don't want to compare, but I call it in Chivas Femenil, there's one particular player called Alicia Cervantes, and they utilize her, but the system isn't built around her. The system is centered around her, but it's a collective team effort. And I think that's what Vanny and LA Galaxy is trying to do this time around, right? Chicharito needs to be a driving force on this team that helps them thrive, but the system still has to be in place so that LA Galaxy still maintains a good structure, regardless if he's at the top of the level or not. And I think that game against Seattle was actually a good test to see just how well they could actually do that when Chicharito unfortunately can't score goals.
And it was a good bounce back to lose to Seattle, which I think many expected. I mean, Seattle have just been a completely different beast over the last 3 or 4 seasons. And to go up there, I'm not sure a lot of people are expecting the win, but to come back and then face El Tráfico, your rivals, and then win that game, that is a huge boost. I'm going to play you a clip right now from Coach Vanny in regards to the team and what he had to say.
I'm so happy for the guys. I mean, they laid it all out there today. I mean, there was every single guy that went out there, gave everything that he had to the victory today. So I'm happy for them. They earned it by just their work rate, their commitment, sticking to it. Like you said, they got a lead, gave up the lead, got it back. So I'm proud of them. I mean, it's a group of guys who, if they continue, which I believe they will, again, the character that they have to compete for these games, we're going to continue to get better as a team. And, if we can carry this along with us, we're going to have a really good group here that's going to be very, very tough to beat.
Amelia, I think he's made such a difference. This coach, really, every single time I hear him speak, every single time I'm in the pressers, the way he deals with the team and the fact that he's not afraid to make changes, even though he knows he's made maybe mistakes. We saw that against Seattle. And we've seen that from him. He's very unafraid. Give me your take on Vanni, because he's the serious manager who has MLS experience that this team has been missing, I think, since Bruce Arena.
Yeah, he definitely seems like a nonsense kind of guy, right? And I think the most important part for everyone involved was that cultural aspect, right? I think regardless of where you play in whatever league you are, that's such an important part for the rest of the fan base, right? Who does this person understand us? Does he understand what we want out of it? And in LA Galaxy's case, it's about winning, and it's about getting into that top place where people are respecting you and that they need to return to, which, like you said, right, probably hasn't been since the Bruce Arena era. So he definitely seems like a no-nonsense kind of guy, but he has, as LA Galaxy has been nice enough to let us see within, behind the scenes kind of thing, he is still about that communal aspect of the team, making sure they all get along, making sure they're motivated. And I think this is exactly the kind of situation where, as we've seen, Chicharito thrives in.
Yeah. One of the other things that Coach Vanni said was that this is a cultural win. And I believe that one of the things, and I don't want to bring Arsenal up at all here, but Arteta's biggest job is to try and bring the DNA and the culture back to Arsenal Football Club. LA Galaxy have missed that culture and DNA, that winning mentality that they have been used to over the years. 5-star team, dominant completely for years and years and years, always in the playoffs. And they've just been so lackluster in the last couple of seasons. He mentioned the cultural win. Can you try and explain to me what you think he meant by that?
Yeah, there's another saying in Spanish, Club America and Chivas, which coincidentally Chicharito played in the past in the Liga MX. They say, los clásicos se juegan diferente, which is just like you play rivalry games or clásicos much differently because of all the context that it involves. It's not just what happens on the field; it's what it means to the fans, what it means to that rivalry. And for LA Galaxy, I think for a cultural win meant like this is against our biggest rival, right? Because they're a crosstown rival. But it's also about returning back to our ways, or showing the fans once again that we're returning back to what we believe we are and what that we are. And I think that that's why it made it that much more special for everybody involved, because I think even though Vanni has been a part of it, I don't think Chicharito has, because the past games have been enclosed, without any fans, and it hasn't really felt it. And he was in a weird place last season. So for him to get to experience this, or even all the other players collectively get to experience this, because I think, we're going to talk about Bond later too. It made them believe, like, okay, this is what LA Galaxy is about. This is what LA Galaxy strives to be. And I think that that's where the biggest victory at the end of the day came from them believing.
And they have a lot of new players, and they've had to integrate a lot of new players. It's definitely a transitional squad. And you mentioned Bond, and that's Jonathan Bond, who has played in England. He's played for Watford, for Reading, Peterborough United, and he has made a really big impact already as goalkeeper for LA Galaxy, and definitely shored up the defense. He's definitely leaked goals, but I don't think it's because of him. But I think what he does is he has a presence and a stature in the team that gives the team a little bit more confidence. This is what he thought of his first MLS El Tráfico experience.
It was amazing. The atmosphere was great. The smoke and the confetti as well coming down. Everything felt very different. And
I felt like before the second goal, I kind of felt it building, and the fans kind of scored the goal. I know Jonas scored the goal, but it was kind of, you could feel a goal was coming. And it was just an amazing day, and we're just I'm relieved to come away with a win.
One of the other things he said to Amelia was how very different it was from playing a game in England. You know, there isn't always the confetti. There isn't that continental style of fanship, if you like, with games in England. So for him, it was like a really big deal. And I think he could prove to be their most important signing this season.
It was so funny during the game. Obviously we have our share of LAFC and LA Galaxy fans on the timeline because of who they follow, who we follow. And it was funny because I actually saw some LAFC fans saying that you missed Bingham, right? But it's because Bon was just he was just such an asset in that game with some crucial shapes. He's been the entire season, I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was him or Vanny who said that they would like for him not to make so many saves.
He said it. He actually said it. Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, I wish I wouldn't have to save as much as I do, but he's proving, was it you or was it Delmy who said like he's proving why he's worth his paycheck? And I think aside from that, he does seem to bring a sense of confidence to the defense. I mean, he's picking up the slack in a way that I think Bingham unfortunately couldn't. He was really frustrated back there, whereas Bond feels a little bit more confident. I think like he's saying, the fans were such a huge part of it to him. They're going to receive that, and they're going to be in a warm reception to him acknowledging them. And it just becomes that really natural growth between fans and him. And, I think he's going to really absorb that and help it motivate him moving forward.
He really saved the team in that match. And somehow, some way, they found a winner through Jonathan Dos Santos. But before I move on to that, there was another really good question because there was an earthquake during the game. And we were joking for a while. It was like Chicharito is now causing earthquakes in LA. And Jonathan being new here, they asked him about that. And here's what he had to say.
Was there an earthquake? Yeah. I was sprinting around, so I probably was off the ground for most of the earthquake.
He was off the ground for most of the earthquake. It shook the press.
I know. I was wondering. I mean, I saw you guys' tweets on the time because I felt it slightly here at home while I was watching the game. But I can only imagine because I think it was Damien or Kevin who said, like, technically you guys are on an elevated platform. So I can only imagine the slight swaying you guys felt. It
was really scary and it was very prominent. And I hadn't felt one like that in a really long time. And it was because they asked Greg Vanny about it. And he's like, oh, my gosh, I didn't know what the heck was going on at that time. There could have been an earthquake and I would never have known with everything going on the pitch and his mindset kind of being into the game as well. So, no, that was crazy. And the fact that happened during that match in particular, I thought, I mean, it's never funny because you don't want anyone to get hurt, but an earthquake during El Tráfico, it was ironic. It might be the word, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or serendipitous.
Yeah, serendipitous, even better. You're a good wordsmith. Let's talk about the guy who I ripped to shreds before he scored the winner. And in typical Twitter style, you put a tweet out there and I was like, Jonathan Dos Santos is going to have to step it up. He's been poor. He's been getting away with it. And then before you know it, boom, he scores a treat of a goal, Amelia. And again, with your Mexican national team head on and you're talking about Chicharito and Jonathan and them combining in the way that they did for this particular goal. I would say Dunbar as well. And what he did prior to Chicharito getting the ball was incredible. Talk us through that a little bit, because I think you might or might not agree with me that it's really a season for him to step up big time.
Yeah, first, I always appreciate the way that Jonathan celebrates his goals. It seems like he's so elated to be able to contribute in that way to his teammates. He actually had a similar celebration when he scored the game-winning goal for Mexico in the Gold Cup in 2019. That feels like forever ago. But I was actually at that game, and he did the exact same thing. Took off his jersey, had his whatever that is, I want to call it a sports bra thing.
At the tracker where they track
the
all this stuff,
thing.
right?
But this one felt that much more like it meant so much more to. Actually, no, I'm not gonna say it. But he took off everything this time around, so I felt like it had that extra oomph to it. But yeah, I think it starts off by giving credit to Dunbar by doing what he did down the line that way. I mean, obviously Chicharito ends up giving him the assist. Later on, Jonathan actually says that Chicharito told him, "Hey, I'm gonna give you a pass so that you can score this game." Kind of adding to that feeling of kind of, comforting leadership that Chicharito is trying to convey to everyone, including, national team teammates that he's had for years, because he just wants to motivate everybody involved. But I do think that it has been, I honestly want to say that it's just been an important time for Jonathan since 2019, because he, at the Gold Cup, he said that same thing at the beginning of 2019. I want to make sure that I'm in a position to put myself on the national team. And I think for him and Chicharito, they're trying to do that going into this summer, because there's just so many tournaments involved in Mexico that Tata Martino is going to need so many options for so many different tournaments, that I think doing this kind of stuff, scoring these kind of goals in these big games, helps them a lot. And, Dunbar, Chicharito, and then honestly, even Efrain Alvarez leaving the ball that way for Jonathan to take that shot plays into that whole, just Mexican players trying to thrive during this game, that saw Carlos Vela not playing. So I think it was good momentum, at least for the Mexicans in LA Galaxy.
Yeah, and to be fair to Jonathan, he's definitely had injuries and he's trying to come back from that, and his rehab is kind of serious. He's got, is it cramps that he's suffering from after the injuries? There's some type of treatment that he's having, and it doesn't allow him to have, an easy recovery period after games and stuff. So hopefully that's something that can improve for him as the season goes on, with more match fitness and game time.
Yeah, I mean, even though you said, put your Mexican hat, which we do a lot of the time, right, for these players. One of the reasons I even got into really divesting my time into MLS in the first place. You do see the frustration that can lead to him not being at his top form, and you notice it. You notice it. LA Galaxy fans notice it. Those who cover the team notice it. So I think when he does this kind of stuff, it's good, but hopefully he can still improve where it matters, which is in the midfield and making sure that structure maintains its form. How
disappointing do you think it is to not see Carlos Vela in this game? And I'm going to ask you this with both hats on. Who do you think is going to have a better season this season? I think from a neutral perspective, you want to see Vela versus Chicharito in El Tráfico. That's a no-brainer. Carlos Vela has been the superstar of MLS since his arrival at LAFC. Zlatan would argue that, he was even the king the season where they played in that same season. Chicharito is trying, I think, to really emulate or surpass what Carlos has done. Talk me through that a little bit.
It's funny because I think once we saw Chicharito sign with LA Galaxy, I think a lot of us were like, Chicharito's going to break the goal scoring record. It's just because he's such a poacher, but such a talented one in finding that space that we've been seeing this season. I mean, he has 6 goals already. So I think Kevin and Josh are constantly talking about it, right? Technically speaking, if he keeps at this rate, he's going to have like 40 goals the entire season. And I think right now, the interesting thing about Carlos Vela has been this kind of notion that he's not fully committed to a team. Is that the case with LAFC? I don't think so. I don't want to start any of those type of like hyperboles by any means. But you do start to wonder when he's going to be back, right? When he got subbed off, he was frustrated and he was upset. Bob Bradley admitted to making a mistake, taking him out too early, miscommunication, what have you. But then he hasn't come back in a few games, and you start to wonder, when is he going to come back? And that time that he's not gone, I don't think, knock on wood, Chicharito is going to have a slump by any means. So in terms of who's going to have the better season, I would say Chicharito. If we're looking at goal scoring records and potential, but the impact that Vela has with LAFC might have him still be, a talking figure within the league. But I would say that it might be Chicharito's season this season, and I honestly wouldn't have a problem with that. Vela has already had his time to shine. He's already got the golden boot. He's already broken the record. He's already been player of the year. So with that in mind, I really don't mind Chicharito having a much better season than him.
Yeah, and he's won the Supporters' Shield. And also, though, I do think that in today's world, in order for LAFC to truly disrupt LA Galaxy, they've got to win MLS Cup. They've got to win that big one, and he'll be judged on that for sure. And LAFC are definitely a team in transition too, aren't they? They seem to be out of sorts. They haven't started off as dynamically this season. They've had some injuries as well that they've had to deal with at the beginning of this season. And I have to say, sometimes Bob Bradley, I think LA Galaxy have the better coach right now. I'm not saying that Vanny's a better coach than Bob Bradley career-wise.
I get what you're saying, though. It just seems in terms of momentum, if you will, or even team morale to a certain extent, there definitely seems to be a much happier, if you will, quote unquote, right situation going on with LA Galaxy, where like everybody is about it. Everybody is collectively, like you said, it's a cultural win. So fans, players, coach, they all seem to be in it. Whereas I think it was actually Eric, the Hammer, who made this point. So I'm going to give him credit for it, where it's like you do have this kind of narrative over at LAFC where you have Vela, who's not speaking to the press, hasn't done that for a long time, is injured, isn't playing. And, Bob Bradley is just trying to keep his team leveled. But you do kind of have that yin and yang kind of situation where it's like everybody is all inclusive and, being as open as possible with LA Galaxy, and then LAFC is a little bit more reserved at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment. And maybe that's because he's injured and they don't want to kind of go there with the questions. But yeah, exactly. And Javier Hernandez, Chicharito, has opened up a little bit this season, but I also think that the team have opened him up a little bit more in terms of accessibility. And it's important. They are the two of the biggest. They are the two biggest stars currently in MLS. And so they need to be connected with the community. They need to be available to the media, and building stories around them is only going to engage people even more. I do want to give a nod to Derek Williams for that tackle for Chicharito's first goal. It's it was so, I don't care what league you're playing in, the determination and what he did, and it ended up being an assist. And there was this whole question, what's better, the goal or the assist? For me, that assist becomes an all-time classic clip. Would you agree?
It's just so perfectly executed. I think if anything within that tackle is different, it's either a foul, it goes too far, or it's too short, whatever. It was just so perfectly executed. Even the way that the pass is just strong enough to go right to Chicharito's feet, allow him to do a very good, quick, but not too apparent turn, and then get right to goal. Yeah, I didn't. When I watched the game, I didn't pay as much attention to it in the moment. But as you go back and you watch it, you just go, "That's just a brilliant tackle."
Yeah, it was a great tackle. Okay, in summary, you got 30 seconds plus 15. How would you summarize this particular game? And do you think it's way too early to say who's going to have the better season as a team? We've talked about player, but give me your summary and let me know, based on what you see so far, if LA Galaxy may have one of those special seasons.
I'm tempted to say they're going to have a special season, just because it doesn't seem like even when they're brought down, they're going to get, they're going to stay down, and I think you saw that a lot last season, even in the theatrics of the coaches, like you said, right? GBS was constantly with his hands in, his face in his hands, and you just felt this defeatist attitude throughout the entire team. I don't think you feel that with LA Galaxy this season, where even if you expect a loss against a top team like everyone saw against Seattle, you go, it's okay. They just need to do better than they were last year, which is a low bar, but I think the expectations are going to be a lot higher.
Yeah. But also, forward. Amelia, don't you think too, like GBS used to, like you said, used to sit on the sidelines, wait till like the 75th minute or 80th minute to make a substitution, wasn't adaptable. There really wasn't a great team spirit. There were issues left, right, and center. I think that even in adversity, this coach, Greg Vanny, has the ability to pull these guys back up and keep them marching forward. I think mentally that is a big difference for this squad this season. No doubt.
Yeah. 100%. And with LAFC, I think that they are still media-wise, league-wise, all around. And if Vela's still there, even if he's not playing into discussion, when he's playing into discussion, I think that they're always going to be a talking point moving forward. And I think that does probably motivate the team in some way to be better. But I think in terms of just expectations, I think LA Galaxy is going to exceed expectations, whereas LAFC will probably just meet them. And that's where I think the better will probably be on LA Galaxy side.
Okay, cool. We'll be talking about it a lot more during the season. We'll be bringing you some player interviews and responses to games and stuff like that. So stick with us. You're listening to the Stateside Squad on Highbury Squad. It's a playlist that we have. I'm here in the United States, cover LAFC and LA Galaxy games. And it's an exciting, growing league. And we've seen some of the best come and play here. So I hope you enjoy the show. We're going to keep tonight's nice and short. And we're going to get out on this one. Amelia is going to get us out on this one. Let's talk about the power rankings. They come out every single week. Talk me through that a little bit. And if you're surprised by any following the weekend's action.
I have no idea what these power rankings mean. Like, I just don't know what I just want to be in. I just want to be inside the mind of, the conclusive meeting that decides on this. I mean, number one is Seattle. Everybody knows that. You pick Seattle +1 in the finals. That's just the rule. Okay.
That's Amelia's Christmas gift from me this year is going to be Seattle Sounders +1.
But I just don't understand it. I mean, LAFC went down 4, but they're still 7th, which means they're higher than LA Galaxy, who went up 3 and is in 9th place in the rankings. I mean, you do with that what you will. We were talking about before we started recording. I haven't seen much of New York City FC, so don't hurt me. But they're 3rd. I'm not sure why. But
so they're actually 3rd in their conference and they're 3rd in the power rankings, which is very interesting. And LA Galaxy are above LAFC now, are they not?
No, LA Galaxy is in 9th and LAFC is in 7th. So
really?
While LA Galaxy moved up 3 and LAFC moved down 4, LAFC is still better than LA Galaxy, which I guess is fair, but
which team are you surprised is lower? Like if outside of LA Galaxy or LAFC, which is the team that you're a little bit surprised at in terms of their ranking, and which team have you been impressed the most by so far this season?
I mean, honestly, it's LA Galaxy so far. Yeah. So
that's an easy one.
That's an easy question. I don't know. I mean, San Jose's been good. They went up 2, so they're in 8th. There's a few Mexican players over there, so I definitely keep an eye on them a little bit. So they're currently in 8th. So technically, they're higher than LA Galaxy. I don't know if that's a fair assessment for them so far. 4 weeks in. So
yeah,
I don't know. I guess I would be a little bit surprised by San Jose's, but I think that's the only one. Orlando's in 5th. I wouldn't disagree with that. Nani's having a good season this season. They seem to be doing well over in Orlando. So I was in agreement with that one.
Well, David Beckham's Inter Miami are losing 2-0 right now at halftime to Montreal, and Toronto are beating Columbus, and Philly and New England are 0-0 at currently. So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how this plays out. Into Miami, I think. I'm not sure about Phil Neville. We'll see about that one. But next,
anyone that followed the English women's national team understands that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get a score prediction for you for this weekend before we head out. LA Galaxy face Austin and at home, and LAFC are away to +1.
to Seattle?
I think so, aren't they? Am I right? Let me double check. I'll double check that right now. LAFC. I believe they are. I could be wrong. I mean, I've been wrong before, Amelia. This has happened. Yes. Sunday, right. May 16th. Yes.
Austin has been, I don't know why I didn't, this is mean. I didn't expect Austin to flop. I just think that there was such like commercial hype to them that I was like, maybe they won't be as good as everybody's making them, but they've actually been pretty well. But I think if I'm going for a prediction for LA Galaxy Austin, considering it's at home, I want to give it to LA Galaxy. I just think, once again, that momentum is just in their favor. Austin is a good, decent team, but I think if you find Chicharito in the right places, once they get that first one, if it's him or if it's just whoever it is, gets that first goal, I think LA Galaxy is just going to keep rolling. They might allow Austin to score maybe one goal, but I think they'll keep it moving forward. And then, assuming Vela is not back, I might just count it for Seattle. But everybody's going to lose to Seattle, so that's an easy answer too.
So no doubt who Amelia thinks is going to win MLS Cup again, guys, just in case you were wondering. Yeah, I think Austin FC have started off pretty decent. I saw them play against LAFC at Bank of California. They did good. They held on for as long as they could. And I think LA Galaxy might be a bit too much for them. So I'm going to go for a 3-1, maybe even a Chicha hat trick. Who knows? Yeah, it's been that kind of season. Right. Amelia, tell everyone where they can find you and your stuff. Thank you for joining me. As always, very insightful and engaging. Let everyone know where else they can find you.
Yeah, of course. You see my handle right there at Azteca Amelia. I have stuff at FootMex Nation, the Mexican Soccer Show, and then doing some cool things over at the Marketing Jersey. So you can check those all out wherever you want.
Awesome stuff. Amelia, thank you again for joining. This has been Stateside Squad. It's nice, it's short, it's sweet, and it's not Arsenal. It's a little nice break for me. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next time. Here we go.